Is this one of the best value refrigerators for overlanding and camping? Let's talk about it. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things, and today we're taking a look at a new refrigerator that I've been testing out for the past 2 weeks or so. This is the APL55 from ICECO that you may have seen in my recent camping video. And for full transparency, ICECO did send this unit out for me to test for this video, as well as the included accessories that we're going to be talking about today. But as always, I'm going to give you guys my own personal thoughts and opinions. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I gave some of my initial thoughts in that previous video, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll leave a link for it right up here in the corner. But now it's time to take a deep dive and see what this 12-volt refrigerator is all about. On the surface, the APL55 looks pretty dang rugged. I, of course, am a huge fan of the black aluminum design and functional aesthetic, but if black isn't your thing, it's also offered in a silver color as well. This is a dual zone 12-volt fridge, which means you can run it as a fairly large 58-quart refrigerator, or you can split it with the included divider and have a fridge-freezer combo. We'll talk about that a little bit more once we get to the inside. For the outside, the APL55 features metal dampening hinges, which allows the lid to soft close. This is something that I haven't really seen in a portable fridge before, and I think it's a pretty cool feature. There are metal spring-loaded handles, as well as a big grab handle across the opening side of the lid. Now, when it comes to plugs, this thing is packed full of options on both sides of the unit. The front side includes one port for home use with a 110 or 240 volt plug, one port for car use with a 12 or 24 volt application, and two USB ports as well for use under DC. The backside of the unit is what I've been using for my testing so far, because it not only has another 12 volt port and two more USB ports, but this side has a magnetic panel where I have the 250 watt hour ICECO power bank mounted to keep the fridge running no matter where I take it. You can clearly see the ventilation all around the sides of the fridge, and ICECO says that this thing is weatherproof, but I don't really want to find out the limits of that myself, because I've actually really been enjoying this thing so far, and I want it to last a long time. I rarely let any of my fridges sit out in the elements, so this one is going to be no different for me. Now let's take a look at the screen, which has adjustable brightness and is actually pretty easy to see when you're out in the sun. There are 6 simple buttons for power, settings, mode, temp up, temp down, and even a light setting. The light is a nice extra touch for a little bit of ambient light around your campsite at night, with a solid white mode and a blue to white breathing mode. If buttons aren't your thing, the APL55 also has Bluetooth functionality, and it can be controlled by an app. You can download this for both Android and iOS. This screen will also display any error codes, but luckily I haven't had any with my testing so far, and hopefully I don't run into any of those in the future. Now for the inside. When you pop open the 2 metal latches that keep the lid secured, you're greeted with a fairly large interior with a 58 quart or 55 liter capacity. This is the equivalent of about 76 cans, 47 bottles of water, or even 12 bottles of wine. The first thing I noticed was how thick the insulated walls are, 2.4 inches thick to be exact. The better the insulation, the more efficiently a unit like this works, which means it will require less power to keep cool when compared to some thin wall competitors. There are 2 baskets included, which makes grabbing your items out of the bottom a lot easier, and there's also an easy to use drain plug on the bottom, which should make cleaning a breeze. You have 2 lights illuminating the interior, which is a feature that I really love, because I've always found that my old fridge seemed a little dark at night with only 1 light inside of there. And last but not least, we of course have the removable divider. In the double box configuration, the screen will automatically reflect the partition being in place, and then you can adjust the temperatures independently from 68 degrees all the way down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit. When the divider is removed, the screen will reflect that change, and you will have one giant fridge to keep your food and drinks cool while you're out on the road. So that was a whole lot of specs thrown at you guys all at once. If you want to find out some more details, you can of course check out the link in the description down below. But now I just want to give you guys some of my thoughts and impressions just right off the top of my head. The first thing is that I love the rugged design of this thing. It is an all aluminum body, which will probably be a little bit prone to maybe denting and scratching, but there's a lot of stuff on here to protect that as well. Starting on the bottom, we have some nice rubber feet so this thing doesn't slide around the back of your rig. You also have some beefy bumpers all around this thing in every corner, top and bottom, and you even have some tie downs across the top. Now, if you use tie down points like this right here, of course you're not going to be able to open the lid, so I would say that that's probably for transit only, but you could also strap this thing down with the metal handles on the side as well. The metal latches on this thing are super positive. They click into place really nicely, and even this metal grab handle on the top, you can kind of throw this thing around, and I feel like it could probably take a beating. Now for the vents all around the outside of this thing, like I mentioned, ICECO says that this thing is weather resistant, not weather weatherproof. They say that this thing can handle some light rain, but if there is moderate or heavy rain, that's when you're probably going to run into issues. Like I said, I typically don't leave my refrigerator sit out while we're out camping. I will try to keep it in the back of my truck, maybe under a tent or a canopy, whatever we have available. So I don't plan on subjecting this thing to any kind of water. It will, of course, get dusty because the inside of your vehicle, whether you have your windows up or down, it's going to get dusty. And just in the past 2 weeks, I've had this thing in the back of my truck. I'm sure there is some dust in there already, but it's running just fine. If you're looking for a durability test, you guys are going to have to check back in the future once I get some more miles with this thing inside of my vehicle. Now let's pop this thing open and take a look at the interior, which is a pretty cool change compared to the fridge that I'm used to. The old fridge that I've been using for years never had a freezer option, so the addition of this new partition here and being able to split this into 2 different sections with different temperature controls on each side, I think it's a pretty cool touch. This also feels quite a lot larger than my old fridge, and if I was running it without that divider in there, I feel like I could definitely pack a lot more food and drinks into this unit. For me personally, I would say that this is almost too big because for the most part, I can pack at least 7 days worth of food in here. I'm typically not making super elaborate meals, so I'll just have water, maybe some noodles, pasta, some meats. And with the size of the APL55, I would actually be able to pack food for myself and others that I'm camping with at the same time. So if you're a family of 4, this might be a pretty good option for you. The included baskets are really nice because if you need to grab all the way to the bottom, you can simply slide these out and get your food out. You have that for both the refrigerator side or the freezer side, depending on how you have them set. And I also like the addition of 2 different lights in here. Of course, if you do have the partition installed and you only have a light on this side, it's only going to light up half the fridge, but they have them on both sides. So when you're digging in this thing at night, it's really nice to have that extra light there. I haven't had any problem with being able to see into this thing at night. Soft close lid, nice touch, but now let's actually take a look at this screen and all of the settings. So to power this thing up, you simply tap and hold the power button for about 2 seconds and that screen will illuminate. Now the settings button is where you're going to access a lot of the features, so if I press and hold that for about 2 seconds, it's going to take me into the first mode, which is where I can set the temperature either up or down. And just below that temperature icon, it's also showing me which side of the fridge I'm actually adjusting. So the one on the left is going to be the side closest to where you're lifting the lid from. And if I tap the settings button again, that will take me over to adjust the temperature on the further side or the hinge side of the unit. The next setting that you're going to be able to adjust is the brightness setting. I have this thing cranked up all the way, and although it might be kind of hard to see on video, I can actually get a pretty good view of everything that's going on the screen. Another tap of the settings button is going to take you into the battery protection, which essentially prevents over discharge. There are 3 different sensitivities, low, medium, and high, and there are different thresholds depending on the power source that you are using, whether you're plugged into a 12-volt source or if you're plugged into the wall at your house. The next setting will allow you to go from Fahrenheit to Celsius. One more tap will allow you to turn off the beeps. Another tap will allow you to turn off the Bluetooth functionality in case you aren't interested in using the app. And then once you're done changing all of these settings, all you have to do is let the fridge sit there for about 5 seconds and all of your settings will be applied. Another button found on here right next to the settings is of course the light. So if I press that, that activates this ambient light here on the outside. With another press, it will go into that breathing mode. It'll actually fade from this blue color here into the white color, back and forth until you actually turn it off. And then last but not least, next to that, we have the cooling setting. This fridge comes from the factory set to the max cool setting, but there is also an eco setting in case you want to conserve a little bit more power. Now, I actually did a pretty quick test as soon as I set this fridge up. I loaded it up with some bottles of water, some other drinks in there. I charged that optional battery up to 100%, made sure the fridge was cooled down to about 34 degrees on both sides. And then I left the lid closed, I left it locked, and let it run for about 24 hours. In 24 hours, this fridge drew enough energy to take that battery down to just 26%, which is actually more than they even advertise. And we're gonna talk about that battery system a little bit later. So if you have this thing in a vehicle with just that battery attached, I think it could definitely last you a day, possibly even longer than that if you are charging it via 12 volt while you're out driving around. There's also that Bluetooth app like I mentioned, and I'm not going to go heavily into detail here. The app is okay, but there's pretty limited functionality. You can't control absolutely everything through the app, and it kind of has a weird name. The app is called Car Fridge, and I think ICECO should just rebrand that to ICECO. Make it an ICECO app where all of your products connect to that, but that's just me. Now let's talk about that power bank that's actually powering this fridge. This is another optional accessory coming from ICECO. I really like the functionality of a small battery pack that can power this fridge for over 24 hours. And I like the fact that it just kind of magnets to the side of the fridge. I can pick this thing up, move it around the campsite, and I don't have to worry about really bringing the power source with because it's already included there. Now, having onboard power like that is pretty cool. However, I think it would be even cooler if it was actually built into the unit itself. If you're rocking down some pretty rough roads, there may be a chance that that thing could come off its magnet mount. You do have to have the cable connected between the two different units. And I actually wish they did have a shorter cord for this, because you have a pretty long cable here, which I just have zip tied up, and it just kind of hangs off of the back. So ideally, I think it would be cool to have a power unit like that included, actually built into the fridge, but it also gives you functionality outside of just powering a fridge too. ICECO claims that it can run a fridge like this for 8.5 hours, but I've already found that it can actually do it a little bit more. I was, of course, testing in really ideal conditions. I wasn't going inside of the fridge. I just let it be cool, and the compressor pretty much never runs because the insulation of this thing is so thick. But you can also charge other accessories like an iPad up to 7 times, a laptop up to 5 times, or even a cell phone up to 16 times. So if you have the fridge and you have the power bank while you're traveling around, you really don't need to worry about power all that much. I, of course, have redundancies, so I have a lot of different battery systems that I'm testing out all the time, but this is a pretty cool one because it's small and compact, and it fills a lot of different roles for me personally. Now, I should also talk about the new 80-watt solar panel, which is another additional accessory for the fridge like this. I'm not one to use solar panels very often, but I did set this thing up just to test it out. As long as you have nice direct sunlight, setup was a breeze. This thing just kind of folds open. It has magnetic feet that kick out, and it has a power cable that is already attached and built into it. There is a little bit of storage with a zipper pouch on the back, which allows you to keep other cables in there. But I will say, even though this is probably common knowledge, a solar panel like that is not going to directly power this fridge. The solar panel will feed into a battery system like the 250 watt hour power bank on the back, which then in turn powers the fridge. So if you're set up in a camp spot for a while, you can set up your solar panel running into the battery, running into the fridge, and you can be off-grid for quite a long time. Now, I'm kind of going back and forth here with pros and cons, some things I like and some things that I don't like about the fridge. I do want to hit on some of my biggest cons, and this is just for me personally. My only cons with this fridge are the size of it and the weight of it. This is a fairly large fridge, and for me personally, I don't really need that much space. It's coming in at 28.7 inches by 18.7 inches by 18.9 inches. A lot of those dimensions are thanks to some actual nice features of this thing, like I've been mentioning, the thick insulated walls, the bumpers and tie-down points on the outside. So if you want a fridge that is rugged and will be really good for overlanding and camping, that is generally going to make the exterior dimensions a little bit bigger. Also, the weight of this thing, this is a beast of a fridge. It weighs 54 pounds, and that's with it empty. So if I had this thing completely loaded up with food, it's probably going to require 2 different people to actually move it around safely without throwing out your back or just struggling with the kind of awkward size. Now, this is also going to depend on what type of vehicle you're carrying this in. I typically kept my old fridge right behind my passenger seat on a little deck system that I have back there, and that's where the fridge lives when I'm out on the road. I strap it down to the little deck system. I never take it out of the truck, and I'm able to actually open the lid, reach in there, grab whatever I need, and close it. It keeps the thing out of the dust and the elements, and that's kind of where I've always kept my fridge. Luckily, even with the weight and size of this thing, it also fits in the same place. I've been throwing my APL55 right in the same place, and then I just kind of push the seat back and kind of sandwich it in between the back wall of the truck. The lid still functions as it should. The power system doesn't get in the way because it's already attached to the fridge itself, and it works for my application. However, some of the things that I noted, because this is a more durable and kind of rugged fridge, I would actually like to keep this in the back of my truck in some situations. However, I of course run a Diamondback cover in the summertime, and unfortunately this sits just a little bit higher than the sides of a bed of a Tacoma, like my 3rd gen, so I wouldn't be able to close the cover. And if you don't have a cover over top of this, then it's going to be exposed to a lot more dust, elements, snow, rain, all of that. I personally wouldn't want to keep a fridge like this in the open bed of a truck, but to each his own. Now, if you drive an SUV, it is a completely different story, whether you're in something like a Subaru Outback, a Land Rover, a Toyota 4Runner. If you have a hatch in the back, there is an optional slide, which doesn't work for any of my applications, but you can actually mount a slide to the trunk of your SUV, and I think that would be the ideal way to carry this thing. It can hold the weight of the fridge, the power system, and having it loaded at the same time. Whenever you want to get something out of the fridge, you simply press down on the buttons, pull the fridge out, and you have really nice access to everything inside of there. You can keep it strapped to that slide out full time. Again, doesn't really work for my application. The slide will not fit in the back of my truck. It of course will not work with the bed because the fridge will sit even taller and then I can't close my Diamondback cover. So if you do drive an SUV and you're in the market for a fridge, I would take a look at those slide out options as well. So now for some of my final thoughts. Like I mentioned, I've only really been testing out this fridge for about 2 weeks, but I am really enjoying it so far. It seems promising. Hopefully I won't run into any issues. And I'm glad I actually have this thing now because my old fridge was kind of on its last leg. It was having compressor errors, it wouldn't start up. That's another thing that I actually haven't mentioned. The compressor on these ICECO units have a warranty of up to 5 years. So if you ever run into any issues like I was having with my old fridge, something like that is going to be warranted. And then I believe for the rest of the unit, they have a 1-year warranty. Don't quote me on that, but you can find out more about that stuff over on their website. So I think the fridge is great. The accessories are really nice as well. And I didn't even mention the best part yet, the price of this fridge. After using this for the past 2 weeks, if I had to guess and put a price point on this, I would say it's probably around $1,000 to $1,200. But this thing is actually only $859 right now, which makes me think that this is a great value for what you're getting. It is of course around the holiday seasons and Black Friday is upon us, so ICECO is also having a Black Friday sale. You can find up to 30% savings site-wide right now, so if this is something that you're interested in, you can get it even cheaper than the normal price of $859. Now, because they sent this out for me to test to bring a review to you guys, they also hooked me up with a discount code, so on top of any other sales that are going on, you can also save 12% off if you use code TALONSI at checkout, or you can just simply click the link in the description down below. So is this the best fridge for overlanding and camping? I think it's a pretty good contender given the value of it. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments down below. And if you have any questions, drop those down in the comments and I will try to answer anything as best as possible. Now, this is going to be my go-to fridge for the next hopefully like 2+ years of traveling. So I'll check back in some future camping videos and bring you guys some more details if I run into any issues with this, if I find any tips and tricks on using the APL55. I'll keep you guys filled in as much as possible. So that is all that I had for today. If you guys are new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every single week. As always, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.